Every zombie movie makes the same mistakes, not small ones either. We're talking fundamental survival errors that would get you killed faster than any horde. From infinite stamina to magical gasoline, these films break the laws of physics, biology, and common sense on a loop. Today, I'm breaking down everything zombie movies get wrong about survival, starting with the one myth you've already noticed, the infinite cardio myth. You've seen it 100 times. Character gets spotted, character sprints for 6 straight minutes, character survives. And every single time, you laughed. Good, because the human body doesn't work like that. Not even close. Here's the thing. Running at full speed burns roughly 1,200 calories per hour. Even a well-fed survivor hits complete muscular failure within 30 to 45 minutes. Your glycogen stores start tanking after just 20 to 40 minutes of high-intensity cardio. One twisted ankle and you're done. And that's assuming you're hydrated. A 2% drop in body weight from dehydration cuts physical performance by up to 10%. Real survival movement isn't sprinting. It's 2 to 4 miles per hour on roads. Through dense terrain, half a mile per hour. Here's a fun twist. Fast zombies also have muscles. They also burn energy. They also collapse. Slow zombies win the long game every time. The survivors who trained for running would be the first to die. The ones who learned to conserve energy, they'd outlast everyone. But running is only half the problem. The other half is where you run TU, and that's where the next big myth comes in. Looting supermarkets first. Of course you're going to the supermarket first. Giant building, aisles of canned food, bottled water, medicine. It's the obvious play. And that's exactly why it'll get you killed. Here's the thing. That supermarket serves somewhere between 10,000 and 50,000 people on a normal week. Every single one of those people had the exact same obvious idea you did. Based on disaster relief models, urban supermarkets get completely stripped within 48 to 72 hours of any collapse scenario. That's not zombie fiction. That's real documented history from hurricanes, blackouts, and supply chain failures. But the empty shelves aren't even the real problem. The real problem is that every panicking survivor in a 10-mile radius just funneled themselves into the same building, and every zombie in the area followed the noise. The math is brutal. First-wave scavengers hitting a supermarket face roughly 50 times more zombie encounters per supply item recovered compared to hitting outlying locations. 50 times. That's not a rounding error. That's a death sentence disguised as a grocery run. Meanwhile, hardware stores, farm supply outlets, veterinary clinics, and wholesale warehouses get looted at only 30 to 40% the rate of grocery stores. They're quieter, less obvious, and packed with things you actually need. Feed stores have bulk calories. Vet clinics have antibiotics. Hardware shops have literally everything required to fortify a position. The Walking Dead actually figures this out over time. Early seasons show supermarkets already ransacked or completely overrun. Later seasons shift to raiding pharmacies, vet offices, and warehouses, which fans recognize as the show finally growing up. The supermarket isn't a survival strategy. It's a trap with automatic doors. But speaking of traps, let's talk about another piece of gear that movies promise will save your life, but absolutely won't: the suppressor. The quiet suppressor fallacy. You know the sound. That soft little pew from every assassin movie ever made? The silenced pistol that lets the hero drop 6 guys in a hallway without anyone in the next room noticing? It's one of the most iconic sounds in cinema, and it's completely fake. Here's the thing. A suppressor doesn't make a gun quiet. It makes a gun slightly less catastrophically loud. A typical unsuppressed gunshot registers at 160 decibels or higher. Slap a suppressor on it, and you're knocking that down by 20 to 35 decibels. Sounds like a big reduction, right? It's not. You're still sitting at 130 to 140 decibels. That's a jackhammer. That's standing front row at a rock concert. That's permanent hearing damage territory. And even the best case scenario isn't what movies show you. A suppressed .22 LR, literally the quietest suppressed combo you'll ever find, still clocks in around 113 to 120 decibels. That's quieter than most suppressed firearms, sure, but that's still louder than a chainsaw. Still louder than a car horn blasting in your face. Every 10 decibel reduction only sounds about half as loud to human ears. So even the absolute quietest suppressed firearm on the planet sounds like a power tool going off, not a whisper, not even close. Now apply that to a zombie scenario. A suppressed shot is still audible 300 to 500 meters away in open terrain. Unsuppressed? 1 to 3 miles. You're not sneaking through a horde with a silent silenced pistol. You're ringing a dinner bell. This is exactly why The Last of Us drew so much praise from survival communities. Characters leaned into melee weapons and stealth over firearms because the show understood what most zombie movies refuse to acknowledge. In a world where noise equals death, guns might be the worst survival tool you can carry, but at least a loud gun only attracts attention. The next mistake on this list will get you killed before you even see a zombie, because survivors keep protecting the wrong parts of their body, wearing tactical gear instead of bite-proof clothing. Every zombie movie has that one guy. Full tactical vest, ballistic plates, molly pouches everywhere, looking like he's about to breach a compound in Fallujah. And he dies in the first act because a zombie grabs his bare forearm and takes a chunk out of it. Here's the thing, a tactical vest with ceramic plates can stop a 7.62 round traveling at 2,800 feet per second. Impressive, but it does absolutely nothing to protect the neck, face, hands, or legs, which are exactly the surfaces a zombie reaches first. You're armored for a gunfight, not a bite fight. That's like wearing a helmet to protect your feet, and the weight problem is brutal. Military gear adds 15 to 40 pounds and restricts your mobility by 15 to 25%. In a world where survival depends on endurance, stamina, and the ability to run when things go sideways, that weight penalty compounds every single physical vulnerability you already have. You're slower, you tire faster, and you can't climb for your life. Now here's where it gets frustrating. The technology for actual bite protection already exists. Commercial puncture-resistant materials, Kevlar blends, chainmail composites weigh only 3 to 8 pounds per suit and reduce bite penetration by 60 to 85%. Specialized puncture-resistant fabrics can reduce bite depth by up to 91%. Reptile handlers use bite-resistant gloves that cut bite severity by 70 to 80%. This stuff is commercially available right now. And honestly, the most realistic protective clothing choice in all of zombie media might be Negan's leather jacket in The Walking Dead. Leather reduces puncture depth by 30 to 40%. It's not perfect, but it's light, flexible, and actually covers the areas that matter. The man dressed for a motorcycle ride is better protected than the guy dressed for war. But even if you nail the gear, none of it matters if your vehicle runs out of fuel. And about that fuel situation, movies have been lying to you for decades, using gasoline years into the apocalypse. You've seen this scene 100 times. Survivor finds an abandoned car, pops the gas cap, siphons fuel into a jerry can, and drives off into the sunset, 5 years into the apocalypse. And nobody in the audience blinks because it looks completely normal. But that gas wouldn't work, not even close. Here's the thing about gasoline. It starts degrading within 3 to 6 months under normal storage conditions, and the fuel sitting in most American cars isn't even pure gasoline. Since 2006, the standard at US pumps has been ethanol-blended fuel, which absorbs water from the atmosphere and breaks down even faster. Biodiesel blends, those degrade in as little as 6 to 12 months. After 12 months, fuel loses roughly 50% of its octane rating. That means the engine can't combust it properly. You're not getting a smooth ride into the sunset. You're getting sputtering, stalling, and eventually, nothing. A gallon of gasoline from 2020 would be functionally useless by 2022 or 2023 in most climates. Diesel lasts longer, maybe 12 to 24 months, but it still degrades well before the 3 to 5 year mark that most zombie films casually operate in. This completely reframes the role of vehicles in any real collapse scenario. Cars aren't permanent survival tools. They're temporary equipment with an expiration date. Once the fuel goes bad, every vehicle on the road becomes a 4,000-pound paperweight. And to its credit, The Walking Dead actually gets this one right eventually. The franchise progressively strips vehicles from the narrative, showing rusted, abandoned cars lining the roads while communities shift to horses and carts. Survival communities recognize that pivot as one of the most grounded logistical decisions in the entire genre, but at least fuel is a problem you can plan around. What happens when characters flee into the wilderness with zero knowledge of how to actually survive there, living in the woods with no skills? Every zombie movie has that moment. The group finds a clearing in the forest. Someone says we can live off the land, and within a montage they're roasting rabbits over a campfire like they've been doing this their whole lives. Let me be very clear about something. Most of you watching this would be dead within a week, and I mean that with love. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. Roughly 70 to 80% of wild plants, depending on the region, are toxic or inedible. That means the forest isn't your grocery store. It's a minefield. An untrained forager has about a 1 in 4 to 1 in 2 chance of severe poisoning from misidentified food. We're talking vomiting, neurological damage, organ failure, all hitting within 30 minutes to 6 hours. You thought you found wild carrots. You actually found hemlock. Congratulations. But the plants aren't even the biggest problem. In cold climates, untrained survivors face death from exposure within 3 to 5 days. Hypothermia alone can kill in 1 to 3 hours in sub-freezing conditions. Building a proper shelter takes an untrained person 4 to 8 hours. A trained survivalist does it in 45 to 90 minutes. That time difference is the difference between sleeping warm and not waking up. And starvation? Movies love showing it as this slow, dramatic decline. In reality, starvation takes anywhere from 3 to 8 weeks to kill you, depending on body composition and conditions. But malnutrition effects kick in within 5 to 7 days. Dehydration kills in 3 to 5 days. The real danger isn't starving. It's everything else killing you first. Survival communities call this the nature channel problem. Knowing how to start a fire is not the same as understanding caloric planning, seasonal foraging patterns, and tool crafting. Those skills take years to develop. The characters who figure it out in the woods represent extreme statistical outliers. Not the norm, but at least poisoning yourself with berries is a slow way to go. Drinking unfiltered creek water, that can have you violently ill within days. And without treatment, infections like cholera can turn fatal within a week. Ignoring basic water sanitation. Zombies are terrifying because you can see them coming. You can hear them. You can run. But the thing that would actually kill most survivors in an apocalypse? Completely invisible, completely silent, and sitting in every river and stream those characters casually drink from like it's a Brita filter. Here's the thing. A healthy adult can survive 3 to 5 days without any water at all. But contaminated water? That kills faster than no water. Untreated cholera can drop you in 24 to 48 hours. Dysentery becomes lethal within 3 to 5 days without intervention. Giardia and Cryptosporidium cause debilitating illness within 7 to 14 days of exposure. You're not just sick. You're losing fluids faster than you can replace them, which in a world with zero medical infrastructure means you're dead. And this isn't hypothetical. During the 1854 London cholera outbreak, contaminated water from a single pump on Broad Street killed over 500 people in the first 10 days alone, with the final death toll reaching 616. One water source, one neighborhood, over 600 dead. Now imagine a survivor group of 15 people drinking from an untreated stream in the Georgia heat. That group doesn't last 2 weeks. But here's where it gets almost tragic. The fix is embarrassingly simple. Boiling water for 1 minute kills 99.9% of pathogens. If you can't boil it, 8 drops of regular household bleach per gallon and 30 minutes of wait time does the job. That's it. That's the entire difference between life and death. Yet characters in zombie movies drink straight from rivers, puddles, and creeks with zero consequences every single time. The Walking Dead's early seasons almost never show water procurement or purification, despite the group constantly moving through the American South, one of the most waterborne disease-prone environments in the entire continental US. The humidity, the standing water, the heat accelerating bacterial growth. It's a petri dish with trees. A zombie you can outrun. Cholera? You won't even know it's killing you until it's too late, but at least bad water only destroys you from the inside. The next mistake survivors make might be even dumber, because they do it on purpose. Splitting the group. Every single time a character in a zombie movie says we should split up to cover more ground, I lose a year off my life. It sounds tactical. It sounds efficient. It is mathematically suicidal. Groups of 3 to 5 people have a 60 to 70% better survival outcome than individuals or pairs in disaster scenarios. That's not a small edge. That's the difference between living and dying. And yet, every other scene in zombie media features some guy with a shotgun going, "I'll take the east side, you take the west," like he just invented military strategy. Here's the thing. Splitting up doesn't even accomplish what characters claim it does. They say they're covering more ground, but what actually happens is they lose the protection of numbers, they lose redundant skill sets, and they lose collective decision-making all at once. The result? A 40 to 60% drop in scavenging efficiency. You're not covering more ground. You're just dying alone in a different building, and it gets worse. Once communication breaks, separated groups start gathering the same resources independently, wasting 30 to 50% of their total effort on redundancy. Then someone doesn't come back on time, and now you've got a search party heading into unknown territory with 2 to 3 times the risk exposure of the original mission. Congratulations. You turned one supply run into 2 rescue operations. The Walking Dead fanbase has done the math on this extensively, particularly during seasons 5 and 6. Fans tracked how nearly every group separation led directly to specific characters character deaths. The consensus wasn't controversial, it was unanimous. The show used splitting up as dramatic shorthand to isolate characters for death scenes, and the survival logic never supported a single one of those decisions. Realistically, regrouping after a separation takes anywhere from 4 to 48 hours. During that window, isolated survivors are at maximum vulnerability, but movies treat reunions like walking around a corner, but at least zombies are predictable. The real threat most survivors completely underestimate is far worse: underestimating the danger of human scavengers. Here's where we need to get real for a second. In every zombie movie, the characters treat a single shambling corpse like it's the most dangerous thing on the planet. They go quiet, they grab weapons, they coordinate entire strategies around one slow, rotting body. But then an armed stranger walks into camp and everyone just talks to them, maybe keeps a hand near their holster, maybe not even that. That instinct is backwards, and history proves it. In real collapse scenarios, the biggest killer isn't the disaster itself, it's the breakdown of social order that follows. When infrastructure fails, desperate people do desperate things. The 2010 Haiti earthquake saw widespread looting, armed robberies, and violent turf wars erupt within days. Gangs seized control of supply routes. Armed groups raided aid convoys. But here's the thing, that's not universal. After the 2011 Japan earthquake, violent crime barely moved. Communities self-organized, shared resources, and maintained order with almost zero looting. The difference? Existing social cohesion, trust in institutions, and population density all change the equation. You can't predict which version of humanity you're going to get when the lights go out, and that unpredictability is exactly what makes other humans the most dangerous variable in any collapse. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. A zombie needs to get close, grab you, bite through skin, and wait for infection to spread. A human with a rifle ends you from 300 yards away before you even know they're there. No warning, no sound, no chance to react. Zombies are predictable. They shamble, they groan, they follow noise. Humans adapt, strategize, set ambushes, and exploit trust. That's an entirely different threat category. The Walking Dead actually nailed this. The Governor arc, the Negan conflict, entire seasons devoted to proving that humans are the real threat. And the fan community recognizes those arcs as the show's most mature evolution. Once the zombie novelty fades, the series becomes compelling precisely because it shifts focus to the thing that's always been more dangerous: us. Every zombie movie trains you to fear the dead. Reality says fear the living, but at least hostile humans are a threat you can see coming. What most survivors won't see coming is something far smaller and far more common: neglecting minor medical injuries. Here's the thing that kills you in a zombie apocalypse. It's not the zombies. It's not the raiders, the starvation, or the dehydration. It's a scratch you didn't even notice you got. An untreated wound becomes infected within 24 to 48 hours. That infection progresses to sepsis within 3 to 7 days. Sepsis kills 30 to 40% of patients, even with modern medicine, full ICU support, and intravenous antibiotics. Strip all of that away, you're looking at a death sentence from a cut you got climbing through a broken window, and it gets worse. A minor scrape creates an entry point for Clostridium tetani. Tetanus becomes lethal within 7 to 10 days without antitoxin. An untreated UTI progresses to a kidney infection in 3 to 5 days, and can kill within 5 to 10 days after that. Even a blister becomes potentially fatal in 10 to 14 days without daily cleaning and antiseptic treatment. Antibiotic supplies drop to near zero within 6 to 12 months of supply chain collapse. Every bottle of amoxicillin that exists is all that will ever exist. This is the part nobody thinks about. Zombie survivors aren't living in the modern world. They're living in 1935, before penicillin, before antibiotics existed at all. And in that era, minor wound infections killed at rates that would be unrecognizable today. A splinter could kill you. An insect bite could kill you. Every casual injury these characters shrug off in zombie movies is a slow, ticking time bomb they don't even know is counting down. And when zombie media actually gets this right, audiences feel it. The Walking Dead's shift after season 4, where wound management and infection anxiety became genuine plot drivers, is widely recognized as the single most realistic evolution the franchise made. Because zombie chases are exciting, but watching a character realize that a small cut on their hand might be the thing that ends them, that's the fear that hits different. That's the one that feels real. Because it is real. It was real for every human who lived before 1940, and it would be real again the moment the pharmacies went empty. The biggest threat in a zombie apocalypse was never the dead. It was always the things too small to see. If you enjoyed this video and want to see why you can't survive Resident Evil Zombies, click the video on the screen now.